قد أفلح المؤمنون.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I begin in the name of the Almighty God, the Compassionate, the Merciful, the one who has created everything in utmost perfection. And may the peace and blessings of the Almighty God be upon His pure and beloved Messenger, the peak of His creation, the symbol of humanity, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih, and his immaculate progeny of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, especially the leader of our time, the awaited Savior, Al-Imam Al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajah. May Allah hasten his reappearance and make us all amongst his sincere and dedicated servants. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I would like to sincerely thank the organizers of this program, as we have gathered virtually this evening to discuss the importance of Akhlaq, or Islamic ethics. If you wanted to summarize the mission of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alih in one word, how would you summarize it? We know that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alih had many objectives that he achieved. He had ideological objectives to bring the proper aqeedah, the proper belief system to people. That's one objective. Showing them the path of guidance that gives you success in the hereafter. The Prophet also had an objective to deliver spirituality to the people. The Prophet also had an objective to make people successful in this world, at the social level, at the political level, at the economic level, at all levels. The Prophet had many missions. He had many objectives. But if you really wanted to summarize his entire mission in one word, what would you say? The Prophet ﷺ, he himself answers this question. He clearly and explicitly states what is his main objective. The Prophet ﷺ, in a very famous hadith that both Shia and Sunni have narrated, the Prophet says, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. O people, if you wonder why God sent me, why has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala endowed me with this message, I will summarize it for you. I have been sent to complete moral virtues, to complete ethical standards. So in one word, the mission of the Prophet ﷺ is akhlaq, to deliver to us the best akhlaq. Now when we think of akhlaq, what do we normally think of? Like right now when you think of the word akhlaq, morality, ethics, what is it that comes to your mind? You know, I think the typical image that comes to our mind is, you know, be smiley, be this nice person, this kind person, right? Usually we understand this to be part of good akhlaq. Also, you know, be mindful what you see, what you listen. You know, when you say this brother has good akhlaq, this sister has good akhlaq, they're humble, they're nice, they're kind. And this is definitely a big part of akhlaq, but there's more to it than that. When we say akhlaq, we are talking about a comprehensive, complete set of morals and ethical virtues. We're talking about a framework that sets you for life, organizes your life, helps you function and operate properly. Akhlaq means you're able to react positively. A few years ago, a dear brother in our community in Michigan was struggling with, you know, some anger issues with his family. So basically he told me, Sayyid, when I go home, my brother, my sister, somebody in the family has to tick me off. They have to enrage me. They have to push my buttons. And I go there and I explode at them and I, you know, just lose it, basically. Any advice for me? I told him, the best advice that I can give you is for you to program yourself. Akhlaq means you program yourself to expect something like that and to know how to react to it. So tonight, This was probably, in the afternoon when I was speaking to him, or maybe evening. I told him, tonight, when you go home, just remind yourself, tell yourself that I'm going to walk into my house and my sister or my brother is going to take me off. It's like a play. It's like a script that I'm following. It's expected. All I have to do to play my role in the script is to manage my anger, diffuse the bad attitude, just smile, say something nice, hug my sister, hug my brother, say a joke, just humorously avoid tension. I told him, can you do that? He's like, yeah, say it. I mean, if right now I expect something like that and I program myself, obviously I'm able to achieve that. I told him that's exactly what akhlaq is. The ability to program yourself so that when something happens, it's not so unexpected. Because you're already programmed, you know how to react. So I saw him the next day. I told him, Habibi, how did it go? He's like, Sayyid, my house turned into this oasis of peace. I went and one of my siblings ticked me off as usual, said something that got on my nerves, but I handled it well, humorously, in a very positive manner. Alhamdulillah, we had a great evening that night. I told him, see, all it took is for you to program yourself to have good akhlaq. So when we talk about akhlaq, it's actually the ability to program yourself so that you are able to react positively and productively in all circumstances. Whether it's an issue of rage and anger, whether it's an issue of arrogance and humbleness, whether it's an issue of haram, the haram look, that requires for you to program yourself. Many times we, especially the youth, when we leave our homes and we go out to the college campus, we go out to the mall, we go out to the park, maybe to some coastal beach area, we don't really program ourselves. We just go there and let's see what happens. A believer, a true mu'min, is one who programs himself. When you program yourself, you know what to expect, you know how to react, and your life becomes very productive. Your life becomes organized. You can manage your life. There are many things that happen to you, you cannot control them, but you can control how you react to them. This is basically what akhlaq is, if we want to briefly explain its dimensions and its depth. Now, one of the best, greatest benefits of akhlaq, my dear brothers and sisters, is that akhlaq ensures peace of mind. It gives you peace of mind in this world. And today, more than ever, we really need that peace of mind. The reason is today you find that especially amongst the youth, we have very high rates of depression, anxiety. You would not believe how many youth come up to me and they tell me, Sayyid, I'm struggling with anxiety. I'm struggling with depression, with suicidal thoughts. I'm just not happy. Something's wrong. I don't feel happy anymore. I don't feel joyful anymore. This is on the rise, unfortunately, and it's really affecting our youth more than ever. One of the amazing benefits of akhlaq is that it gives you peace of mind. Money does not give you peace of mind, my dear brothers and sisters. Believe me. Fame does not give you peace of mind. And if you want the proof for that, just look at the statistics of what's happening in your society. There's one beautiful hadith from Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, in which he states, وَكَثْرَةُ الْإِسْتِمَاعِ إِلَى الْغِنَاءِ يُورِثُ الْفَقْرِ. Prolonged exposure to singing and haram music leads to poverty. One day a young man came to me, he's like, Sayyid, do you really believe in this stuff? I told him, this is the hadith of the Imam, show respect, why do you call it stuff? He's like, no, seriously, this is obviously false. I told him, why would you say that? He says, because Sayyid, just look at, the singers in society. What do you mean poverty? They are the richest of the rich. They have millions of dollars and pounds. They're famous. They have everything that you want. So how are they poor? I told him, you've misunderstood the hadith of Imam Ali alayhi salam. The Imam alayhi salam is not talking about money over here. Poverty has dimensions. There's psychological poverty. There's spiritual poverty. These singers, look at the statistics. I'll share with you statistics from the UK. And these are official government statistics. The average population in the UK, if you want to know the average person suffering from, what's the average of people suffering from depression? It's about 19 to 20%. So 19% of British citizens suffer from depression, where it kind of becomes a chronic state. We all get depressed sometimes due to certain events. We're not talking about that type of depression. We're talking about chronic depression, right? Where it really becomes a disease. You need to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Sometimes you need to take pills. We're talking about that type of depression. So 19% of the British people suffer from depression. Now, this study looked at some subcategories. One of the categories they looked at was musicians and singers, people who are always dealing with singing and music. Well, guess what the rate was? These people are millionaires. Many of them are very rich. They're very famous. People kill themselves to come to their concerts. People stand in line to get an autograph signature from them. These people are rocking it. They have everything you can ask for in this materialistic world. Well, guess what? How's their mental state, their psychological state, their emotional state? This British study found that nearly 73% of musicians and singers in the UK suffer from depression, anxiety, and they have one of the highest rates of suicide. Explain that to me. You've got millions and you're famous. Why would you commit suicide? Why would you be so depressed? Average population, 20%, 19%. Musicians and singers, 73%, 74%. Why? What explains that? SubhanAllah, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, 14 centuries ago warned us, this leads to poverty. You've got money, but you won't enjoy it. You've got money, but it's not going to help you because you're suffering from the state. So, my dear brothers and sisters, when we are talking about akhlaq, we are talking about peace of mind, being successful in this dunya, emotionally always being positive, psychologically always being healthy. This is one of the benefits of akhlaq. When a believer observes the proper akhlaq, the believer will be at peace. Even if he's going through a crisis, even if Allah's trying him financially, health-wise, with his family, he is at peace. This dunya does not give you peace, believe me. In fact, the more we pursue this dunya, the more we get obsessed. One recent example that I can share with you is the obsession with cryptocurrency. I mean, let's admit it. How many of us went and made online accounts and were buying, Bitcoins and Dogecoins and I don't memorize their names. Nano currency, Tether. Every day something comes up, right? Now I know some brothers, they're young, they're 18, 20, 25, 30, and they're really obsessed. They check the price of this, cryptocurrency, digital currency, like 300 times a day. They're hooked to their phone. It gets addicting. And they go through periods of depression because you put in £1,000 and then the price goes down. You lose 300 pounds. You get depressed. Or when you make money, it's like a high. It's like drugs. It's addicting, right? Islam tells us, do business, work, but do it in a healthy way. If you're just sitting in front of a screen and you're not really studying, you're not increasing your knowledge, you're not doing something productive, and all you're doing is buying the stuff, that will take a toll, on you. I'm not saying this is haram, right? Most of our maraji have maintained that there's no evidence that this is haram. Okay, you can buy some bitcoins here and there, but be responsible. Akhlaq is that framework that makes you responsible. Because part of akhlaq is not to be greedy, is not to have avarice. Part of akhlaq is not to be selfish and obsessed with materialism. Akhlaq means you bring a proper balance between your spiritual life, your family life, your work life, your professional life, your time with friends, sports, activities. Akhlaq is that framework that really makes you successful by beautifully organizing your life. So it's really important to understand this fundamental point when we're talking about akhlaq, my dear brothers and sisters. Now, one area that we are really tried in these days and that really requires an excellent vaccine of akhlaq. You got to vaccinate yourself, sure. The only way to become successful is to vaccinate yourself with proper akhlaq. Just like with the COVID vaccine, I'm sure many of you right now have been vaccinated, right? Why do we get vaccinated? To protect ourselves from danger, from a virus. A believer vaccinates himself, herself with proper akhlaq. You don't just sit on your sofa or couch and expect akhlaq, falling at you from the sky. It doesn't happen. You need to work for akhlaq. You need to challenge yourself. You need to push yourself. You need to practice good akhlaq. Islam teaches us to practice proper akhlaq. Let's say I'm a stingy person, I'm a cheap person. Well, Islam gives us a recommendation. 40 days, pretend that you're generous. Try to be generous. Force yourself to be generous. After 40 days, you will literally feel less stingy. You feel more generous. Same with all moral virtues and qualities. You can actually train yourself. Now, one area that really requires a lot of training is social media, my dear brothers and sisters. When you meet others in person, there is that barrier, right? On social media, normally we feel that there are less and less barriers. We can do whatever we want. We can post whatever we want. We can like whatever we want. There aren't that many barriers. And therefore, many of us slip on social media when it comes to hijab. One area is selfies, the selfies that we take, right? Today, there's an obsession in our generation with selfies. Billions and billions of selfies are uploaded every single year to different servers. These are official statistics. Whether it's the Google server, the Facebook, the Instagram, billions of selfies. Every third picture that you take, it's a selfie. Now, sometimes you take a nice selfie with your friends, with your family, you send it to appropriate people, that's fine. You're capturing a beautiful moment. That's beautiful. There's no objection to that. But sometimes it becomes an obsession. It becomes a competition where I try to show off. I try to have the best pose on TikTok, the best pose on Instagram, and I'm competing with others. And this affects both genders, by the way, not just sisters and, the whole concept of hijab, also brothers. You see a lot of brothers. They're trying to flex their muscles. They're posting, provocative images of themselves online. Akhlaq means that I restrain myself. Akhlaq means I ask myself, is this productive? Is this good for me and for my society? Is this good for my future? Does this please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is this good for my mental health? My dear brothers and sisters, people who are obsessed with, liking posts and getting likes and, seeing how others react to your selfies. People who are obsessed with that, they suffer from depression, or they're more likely to suffer from depression. Many college studies have been done in the US and elsewhere, where they looked at college students and, those who were constantly trying to put selfies of themselves, they were actually more depressed than other people. It's not helping us. If I'm active on social media without a purpose, I'm not being responsible, believe me, my mental health is worse. Akhlaq means have mercy on yourself. Do something that's productive. We're always trying to get the spotlight on social media. These days, our youth, they're addicted to TikTok, right? And honestly, I'm not saying there is nothing productive on TikTok. Please don't misunderstand me. There's a lot of good things that happen. But, let's be honest here. Let's admit it, right? Most of what goes on is not productive. It's just a competition at the spotlight. Who gets more followers? Who gets more comments? Whose comment gets more likes? We're all in this competition. And this is absolutely not healthy for us. It's not making you a better person. It's not making you better at your career. It's not making you a better son, daughter, a better sibling, inshallah in the future, a spouse. It's not really making you a better person. Islam teaches us, my dear brothers and sisters, part of your akhlaq is build a legacy. Be ambitious. You're not just a teenager. Maybe today's society tells you, look, you're just a teenager. Go to school and have fun. Get the spotlight. Do something crazy on TikTok. Generate a lot of attention. And yeah, that's what you have to do. This is your ambition in life. Islam teaches you at a young age, have much bigger ambitions than that. You are capable of much more than that. All of you, my dear brothers and sisters, even if you're 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, don't say, I'm young. I'm young, let me just enjoy this stage of my life. Yes, alhamdulillah, there's a lot of halal entertainment. We don't say no to that. But build a legacy, have a goal. Have a goal for you. How do you want to change your society? How will you ensure a healthy family for yourself in the future? How will you contribute at the religious level, at the social level? Be ambitious. I really love the youth who are ambitious. They really want to make a difference. They already are working on a plan from right now. Their world is much bigger than TikTok and Instagram. I really have a lot of respect for youth like that, because it's these youth who will really make a difference. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the tools to really be successful. By the way, my dear brothers and sisters, I will share with you one quick way to always evaluate whether what you're doing is productive or not. Always ask yourself this question. If you feel that you're caught up in this world of social media and you're confused, my posts, are they productive or not? Ask yourself one question. Imagine, inshallah, you all have a long life, inshallah. A long, blessed, productive life. But imagine you're told you only have 6 months to live. And then you're leaving this dunya, you're leaving this world. Your activities, would they matter or no? There are many things that matter. If you're pursuing education, yes. Islam tells you pursue education. Even if you have an hour to live, increase your knowledge, because this will strengthen your soul. That's productive. If you're helping your parents, that's productive. If you're helping a charity, that's productive. You're doing something productive. But all this commotion on TikTok, on Instagram, on all these other platforms, doesn't matter anymore if you're told you have to leave this world. Think about this, my dear brothers and sisters. I know it's a difficult question to imagine, but this is the reality. Death knows no age. I can leave any moment. All this chatter on TikTok, all the likes, all these posts, does it really matter if I'm leaving in 6 months? Let's say right now I have a post on TikTok that has, 1 million likes and 100,000 comments. And it's a crazy move that I'm showing, okay? It's not like something beneficial I'm teaching the people. It's something without a purpose. If I were told that you're leaving in 6 months, does it really matter? Ask yourself this question. Does it really matter that my post has 100,000 comments and has 1 million likes? See, this is part of the proper akhlaq that we have to build. When we talk about akhlaq, it's a complete set, it's a complete system. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, always remind yourself that before you become active on any of these platforms, I'm not telling you to be isolated. Be active, but be productive. Be purposeful. Always know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and what purpose does it serve. If it's a noble purpose, if it's a productive purpose, if it makes you better, makes your friend better, makes your society a better place, I'm all for it. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. Otherwise, it's going to take a toll on your mental health. Many of our youth today are struggling from depression and anxiety because of social media. Because we don't have that proper framework of akhlaq, we fall into all these negative paths. My dear brothers and sisters, the final point that I would like to share with you before, inshallah, we open the floor to any questions and to the questions and answers session is this recommendation that I have for all of you. My dear brothers and sisters, focus on knowledge and stay close to righteous scholars as much as you can. And when I say scholars, I'm not saying, someone who's a traditional scholar, mujtahid, who wears a turban. Yes, we have many great scholars in that field, but someone who's an expert, someone who has knowledge. Knowledge is the best weapon today that you can equip yourself with. Knowledge is the best safeguard against depression. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, in one very beautiful hadith, he talks about loneliness, right, and how it impacts us. The Imam says the best company is knowledge. When you develop this thirst for knowledge and you enjoy knowledge, believe me, nothing can bring you down. It serves as the best company for you in this dunya and obviously on the day of judgment. Knowledge expands your horizons. Knowledge expands your existence. Some scholars understand from different verses and hadiths that when you die, you have, this area that your soul occupies, figuratively speaking, right? The more knowledge you have, the greater your existence is, the more your realities you perceive, and the more joys you will have, the more capacity to have joys. Children don't experience certain joys that you do, right? When you've achieved something, right? And you get all this attention on social media, right? You feel good. Maybe a child doesn't understand that. See, with more knowledge, with more experience, you have greater capacity to enjoy the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, many scholars believe when you die, you leave with whatever knowledge that you have. And that will determine your fate on the day of judgment. So, it's very important to always equip yourself with knowledge. That's part of akhlaq, by the way. One aspect of the akhlaq of a believer is to be knowledgeable, not to be ignorant. And that's why we have a hadith that states the heaviest thing that will be placed on the mizan, on the scale, on the day of judgment is your akhlaq. It's the heaviest thing. It's the most valuable thing that Allah looks at on the day of judgment. So my dear brothers and sisters, commit yourself to knowledge. Have a program for yourself. Understand Islamic theology. Understand our history, the biography of the Prophet, Quranic sciences, hadith sciences, and also the academic sciences that you have in your universities. Absolutely. Many of those sciences allow you to better appreciate the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be the best of the best. If you want to become a doctor, be the best doctor in your community. You want to be an engineer, you want to be a journalist, whatever you want to be, my dear brothers and sisters, be the best of the best, the one with the most experience, the one with the most knowledge. But in terms of religious knowledge, stay close to scholars, my dear brothers and sisters. Today, I see a movement, especially amongst the youth, to move away from scholars. I don't want to put any label to this movement because labels are not important. But what's important is for us to really be close to the teachings of Ahl al-Bayt. But you hear a lot of youth these days, I don't need to follow any scholar. Khalas, I could just open a book of hadith and follow it, and that's how I follow the Ahl al-Bayt. My dear brothers and sisters, it's very important for us to know that the Holy Quran, the ahadith of the Ahl al-Bayt, peace be upon them, point us to experts. Always follow an expert when you're not an expert. If you're an expert, by all means. If you're an expert in Islamic law, in the Quran, in Arabic grammar, in history, in hadith, okay, you know how to navigate all these different waters and challenges. But if I'm not an expert, I need to follow an expert. You can't just go open a book of hadith and formulate your own opinion. My dear brothers and sisters, the book of Kafi, as an example, which is the most prominent work of hadith that we have. The book of Kafi has 16,000 hadiths, right? Have you really studied all these hadiths? Do you know their meanings? What if we have contradictory hadiths? What if we have vague hadiths? Are you really an expert where you've seen all these hadiths? And I'm just talking about the book of Kafi. We have many, many other books of hadith. I can't just come up with my own opinion. Allah will hold me responsible. If on the day of judgment, Allah tells you, why did you act this way? Well, Ya Allah, I saw this hadith in the book of Kafi. The Imam said so. Allah will tell you, well, the Imam said other things. Did you check out the other hadiths? Did you try to reconcile them? Did you understand them with depth? If I'm not at that level, I must refer to knowledgeable scholars and maraja who have done that work for us, my dear brothers and sisters. The Imams of Ahlul Bayt would regularly refer people to their trusted companions who had knowledge. And Imam Sadiq alayhi salam tells his companion Aban ibn Taghlib, he tells him, Aban, sit in the masjid of the Prophet and give fatwas based on, of course, what the Imam had taught him, not giving his own opinion. Then the Imam says, for I love to see amongst my Shia like you, educated scholars who can give the right ruling. By the way, my dear brothers and sisters, a righteous marja does not give you his opinion. We follow Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. We follow Rasulullah. We follow the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. We don't really follow the scholar. We're just using the experience of the maraja to tell us what the Imam said. In the end, I'm not following Ayatollah X or Y or Z. I'm following Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam because he's the proof that Allah has given me. He is my leader whom I have to follow. But Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam lived 13 centuries ago. I did not hear his hadiths. I don't know what the Imam said. So I have two paths. Either I go and research myself and figure out what the Imam said. Well, that requires years or decades of study. Or if I'm not at that level, I follow an expert who tells me I spent my life trying to figure out what the Imam said. And here's the best of what I have for you. After all these years of study, I feel that this is what the Imam said. So it's very important for us, my dear brothers and sisters, to always equip ourselves with proper knowledge. Allah will elevate our status when we do that. You'll feel strong, you'll feel confident. And stay close to righteous scholars. And I invite you, my dear brothers and sisters, to become scholars yourselves. Even if you want to be a doctor, engineer, pharmacist, businessman, lawyer, whatever it may be a scholar. Educate yourself in Islamic law, in Islamic history, in the Quran. Have that proper foundation. You will be doing yourself a service, your family a service, your community a service, and that's the best way to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with that, my dear brothers and sisters, inshallah, we will open the floor to the Q&A session. I will let one of the brothers maybe just give you an idea of how that will work, how you can ask the question, and inshallah, I'd be happy to answer it.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you very much, Sheikh. That was a great talk. We really appreciated having you. This community is, we don't really get the chance to have a lot of scholars. So, as you were saying, this community really relies on people who they themselves, they go out and learn, they teach other people. We're very fortunate to have a lot of students of knowledge who do come here from time to time. But for the most part, this is a lot of people who are riding on the backs of books and reading and there is a little bit of a strand of what you were warning about, in a sense of people going off and doing their own thing and reading the hadith and coming up with their own stuff. But for the most part, I think this community, I think we've moved in a better direction in that sense, alhamdulillah, where
alhamdulillah, I'm happy to hear that, and it's my honor to be with you this evening.
Yeah. So without further ado, basically what we have done is we've had these little tickets open for where people have asked their questions. Anyone who wants to ask a question, please go to the event Q&A channel and then press open a ticket to ask a question. Now, there's one question that there's actually one question that a few different people have asked in a couple of different ways, and I'll just try to summarize it all in one way. The question basically is, Assalamu alaikum, when we are dealing with people of different moral beliefs, different religions, different backgrounds, different sects, of course, and even within Shiism, different people who believe different things than us. So for example, someone says they follow Ayatollah Kamal al-Haidari and they believe X, Y, and Z. And then someone else follows Sadiq Shirazi, for Ayatollah Sadiq Shirazi, for example, right? And then someone else follows another marja, and then someone else follows another marja. And these people have different views and different moral ideas and different senses on what Islam represents. How do we interact with all these different people? People within our sect, people outside of our sect, and people outside of our religion altogether.
Alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullah. Yes, I'm happy to address this. It's a complex issue, but it's a very important one. I would share with you the following points in answering this question. Number one, when we look at other people, Islam teaches us to look at others from the lens of humanity. Before you put any labels on other people, see them as human beings created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One day the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting amongst his companions, and then basically a funeral procession passed by. So the Prophet stood up. Out of respect for this, recently dead person, the Prophet stood up. His companions told him, "Why did you stand up? It's the body of a Jew. A Jewish man died. Why did you stand up?" The Prophet responded saying two words, but these two words carry oceans of wisdom, my dear brothers and sisters. The Prophet said in Arabic, "Alaysat nafsan?" Isn't he a soul? Okay, so what if he's Jewish? Remember, at that time, there were some Jewish tribes who had conspired against the Muslims. So, there was some tension. But the Prophet was teaching his companions that in the end, this is a human being. And I respect this human being. Isn't it a soul? Alaysat nafsan. So, when you're dealing with all these different people around you start off by seeing them as human beings. Too often we dehumanize them, let alone other people. I'm talking about within our sect, as you mentioned. Sometimes if I see a person and he's following X scholar and I have a problem with that scholar or his people or whatever associated with them, I quickly dehumanize this person. I see this person as an enemy. Habibi, this person is a fellow follower of Ahlul Bayt like you. He accepts Allah, he accepts the five pillars of the belief system, he accepts the Quran, same Qibla, he accepts the wilayah of Imam Ali alayhi salam, he accepts Imam Hussein, he mourns for Imam Hussein. You've got 99.9% in common with this fellow brother or sister. Just because they follow that different marja, you dehumanize them. This is a big problem. So the first point is, do not dehumanize these people. Look at them from the lens of humanity. They're people like you. They have slightly different outlooks on life. Maybe they have different experiences. They have different convictions. They have different, understandings of maybe who the best scholar would be. That's fine. It's okay. We can disagree on these points. That's the first point. The second point, and it's really an offshoot of the first point, when you're dealing with people who are different than you, number one, try to understand them. Number two, have proper dialogue with them so they can see where you're coming from. Let's say there's an atheist in your class, right? Don't quickly just dehumanize this person and say, okay, you're condemned, you're going to hell. That's not right. Talk to this person. Have a dialogue with this person. I myself, I've had dialogues with atheists. Many of those dialogues have been productive. Some of them have believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they really had not had an opportunity to discuss God with someone who's qualified. Be qualified, be educated, equip yourself with knowledge. Have a dialogue with these people. Tell them, look, I understand you have a different perspective. Are you interested in listening to my perspective about why God exists? And then have a conversation. It's okay to have a conversation. Today, what we do when we start labeling people and excommunicate them and dehumanize them, we no longer have a conversation. All we do is attack. Allah has a conversation with his most avowed enemy, Iblis, right? Iblis, who knows God exists, he's seen all the signs of God, he became arrogant and he defied Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. and Allah kicked him out of paradise. Yet Allah still talks to him. Allah gave him a chance to explain himself. Allah told him, Iblis, why did you not prostrate to Adam? So he started to give his own corrupt philosophy. But the point is, Allah gave him a chance. Give people a chance to speak. The third point, sometimes it may be the case that your friend is following a scholar whom you see as problematic. By the way, this problem exists in the Hausa circles as well. I don't want to mention any names. You mentioned maybe the first name. I don't want to mention any names right now, but there are some scholarly figures who are controversial, right? Something they've said, and maybe Maraji and scholars have a problem with them right now. So I understand that this is a problem that, it's a challenge. Let's call it a challenge that exists even in Qom, in Najaf, and elsewhere. How do I deal with that? If you know a fellow brother or sister who's following a scholarly figure, and between you and God, you really believe this person, may be deviant, maybe corrupt, you can't just quickly come to such a conclusion yourself. You need to rely on experts. Today, I see youth, they barely know their Islam. Oh, that scholar's corrupt. Habibi, how do you know he's corrupt? Who told you he's corrupt? Did you read his books? Did you, go to his classes? Okay, I may be able to evaluate. I lived 10 years in Qom. Maybe I went to some of, his classes. Maybe I've read his books. I'm an expert. I can say, okay, this guy's problematic. But what about you? How did you make such a, evaluation? So either you're an expert or you rely on righteous experts. If righteous scholars who are not who are not politicizing it, because politics plays a role, my dear brothers and sisters. You must make sure that when you're accepting the testimony of a scholar, right, who's an expert, that scholar is pious. Not every scholar is pious. You need to make sure that that scholar is pious. He really fears God, and he's not politicizing it. Because sometimes politics creates confusion, and it kind of derails us. That's really important for us to consider. So let's say you've gone through all these steps and you've determined, okay, X scholar that my friend follows as a problematic figure. Okay, that's fine. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Sit with your friend and have a very soft, respectful conversation. Tell him, look, there's no difference between you and me. We both accept the wilayah of Imam Ali. We accept the Quran. We have 99.9 things in common. But the issue of you following the scholar has said has said many problematic things. I'm happy to show that to you. Are you willing to have a conversation? See, address it in a civilized manner, in an academic way. Show evidence and proof. Don't just come and condemn, oh, this scholar is deviant. Tell this person, let's look at these statements of this person and what other maraji' have commented, and let's collaboratively as one team try to figure out what's going on. If you approach it this way, okay, your friend will be more likely to consider his position. Let's say your friend didn't. Okay, again, it's not the end of the world. That's fine. Continue your friendship. In the end, if your friend has the proper belief system and the proper practices, and they're leading an okay life, an acceptable life, they're a practicing Muslim, so what? Let them follow another person that you think that person is problematic. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Your friend has done his research, and that's it. He's come to this conclusion. You've had a conversation with him. Nothing changed between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's no longer my business to come and change his taqleed. So it's very important, my dear brothers and sisters, for us to consider these points. When we are put inside our graves, Allah will ask us about him, about the Quran. What's your book? What's your religion? Who's your prophet? Who's your imam? Last time I checked the hadiths, I didn't see a hadith that said you're going to be asked about your marja, right? That's not something that we're going to be asked about that determines your fate on the Day of Judgment. Yes, we have general hadiths that state Allah will ask you how you spent your life. And yes, you must take your religious teachings from trusted scholars. But as long as your belief system is okay, you believe in God, His justice, and prophethood, imamah, day of judgment. You believe in the imams of Ahlul Bayt, in the wilayah, in their infallibility. You're practicing Muslim. You believe in salah and fasting and hajj. As long as you believe in all of these things, right? Okay, so what if you follow this marja or that marja? Let's not make a big issue out of these things. So these are the points that I would share with you in addressing this question.
Thank you very much. I was just talking to one of my friends and my colleagues here, and he was saying, like, it sounds like you're very familiar with the culture here without ever having been here.
Well, this culture that you're referring to has become a global culture, so we're exposed to it.
We're also receiving the opposite question, which is sort of like, if you were on the receiving end of this culture, so to speak, what is your responsibility towards it, and how do you act? How did the imams act towards this? How did the imams address people of other sects and religions who would, abuse them or treat them negatively, or even people within your own circles treating you negatively?
That's a very good question. So what if you're on the receiving end and you're being abused, you're being attacked? There are some people who will engage in character assassination. They will do what they can to bring you down because you're different. You're not from their particular group. And this has different dimensions. This could be with non-Muslims. For those of us who live in the West, many, many times you will find attacks against the religion of Islam. Sometimes it will be within your religion from other sects. Sometimes it will be within your own sect. So what if you're on the receiving end? What do you do? Number one, my dear brothers and sisters, be patient. See, our topic was about akhlaq and how you program yourself to react positively. Program yourself this moment that there are people who are different, and there are people who will attack me, who will misunderstand me, who will label me, who will accuse me. This is part of life. If Allah allowed the greatest of His creation, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to be subject to accusations, right? You think He's not going to try others in a similar way? If you read the Quran, you will find how many times those pagans and those enemies of Islam, they would fabricate these lies against the Prophet. They would label him in a very offensive, brutal way. And the Prophet was patient. Always be patient. One of the most beautiful verses that I love in the Holy Quran is the following. Allah says to His Prophet, I recognize that your chest becomes tight when they give you a hard time, they accuse you and they fight you. وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمُ أَنَّكَ يَضِيقُ صَدْرُكَ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. Ya Rasulullah, we know that your chest becomes tight because of what they say. So what do? Take out a sword and bring them down? Accuse them similarly in a similar way? No. The Quran gives you one plan of action, one way to counter that. فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَكُنْ مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ. Fall into sujood and glorify Allah. Say, Subhan Rabbi al-A'la wa bihamdih. That's what Allah teaches His Prophet. And that's basically programming yourself to be patient. I have Allah with me, it's okay. If I believe I'm right and others are wronging me, I have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on my side. He knows, doesn't matter what other people think. So number one, if you're on the receiving end, be patient. Don't lose your patience. Don't quickly be enraged. Number two, you need to be creative and you need to remove the ignorance in the minds of people. Many times people accuse you, attack you, wrong you, because people are enemies of what they don't know. People don't know. People assume. Explain yourself. Sit with that person. Invite them to lunch, show them good akhlaq, and explain to them where you stand, why you follow this group, why you have this belief system. If you're interacting with these people on social media, explain yourself. Believe me, many people have not heard a proper explanation. If there are Muslims from other sects attacking you, explain to them. Tell them this is why I'm a follower of Ahlul Bayt. Explain to them. Many times we fail to explain ourselves. Yeah, well, they know the whole Sunni Shia debate. No, believe me, a lot of people don't. Tell them why you've accepted the path of Ahlul Bayt. In your own words, politely, creatively, effectively, explain to them. If they hear your explanation, even if they don't, change sides, but at least they will reduce their attacks. They'll be more understanding. So it's very important for us, my dear brothers and sisters, to have a dialogue with them, to always have a conversation with them. Even if they're attacking you, have a conversation with them. This is what the Ahlul Bayt would do. Al-Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, we talk about Akhlaq, right? Al-Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba is the symbol of Akhlaq. You've all, probably most of you have heard this incident where he was in Medina and this Shami man came, meaning this man from Sham, and Sham was the territory of Bani Umayyah, so they had brainwashed the people against the Ahlul Bayt. He saw Imam al-Hasan. When he asked who he is, they told him this is the son of Ali. He started cursing the Imam and his father and his family and, using inappropriate words and language. The Imam alayhi salam looked at him, he told him, I can tell you're a stranger. In other words, you're ignorant. You've been brainwashed. So the Imam alayhi salam confronts his negative attitude with positive akhlaq. The Imam alayhi salam tells him, if you're hungry, come, I'll give you food. If you're homeless, you don't have shelter, come, I'll give you shelter. If you don't have enough clothing, come, I'll give you clothing. What is it that you need? I will provide it for you. The man was shocked. He had never expected that he's going to curse the Imam and cuss at the Imam, and the Imam is going to, respond in this way. The man broke into tears. The man fell at the feet of the Imam. He apologized to the Imam and he told him, Allah knows whom he chooses. You are indeed, through this akhlaq of yours, I know you're on the right path and I know that I've been brainwashed. Now, imagine how we would have reacted. We probably would have cussed back at him. Shame on you. Do you know who I am? Do you know who my father is? There is a lot of ignorance, my dear brothers and sisters. Find creative, effective ways to dispel that ignorance. And that is basically some advice I have for those who feel they're on the receiving end.
Thank you very much. And by the way, just for everyone in the crowd, we have over a solid 20-30 questions here in the chat. So please do not feel bad if we skip over your question. We're trying to summarize and group together as many questions as possible, just so that people can get it addressed. Now, is it okay if do you have time for just two more questions or a few more questions? Number one about taqleed, and I had my own question, and I'm pretty sure a few others had this question as well.
I have time for some more questions. Please feel free to share them.
Okay, yeah. So my first question would be in this case, so we mentioned times where it's good to be lenient, it's good to be understanding. However, there is also a time to be harsh. When does that time to be harsh come into play? Who does this apply to? There's an understanding that some people are ignorant and they are simply just misinformed, and then there's an understanding that people are deliberately ignorant, that they are being disingenuous, that they're being evil on purpose in a sense, or they're denying things on purpose. And then there's a time where people are ignorant. When is this time that we can be harsh with people? What is the circumstances? What situations does that apply in, if at all?
There is no doubt that sometimes we have to be harsh and we have to be, strong and rough in our confrontation of falsehood and evil. The Prophet, the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, even though they were at the peak of good akhlaq, but sometimes, you have to confront falsehood in a firm way, in a harsh way. And that applies to us as well. It applies to every era and every society. Here's the recommendation that I give. Number one, before you become harsh, make sure that you have exhausted all avenues, all possibilities to show the truth, Too many times, we don't do that. We quickly give up. You try once, twice, khalas. I put this person on the X list and that's it. I'm going to be harsh with that person or with that group. Take it easy. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for 13 years in Mecca, he was constantly being attacked. Then when he went to Mecca later, he confronted them. Have you given yourself that amount of time to deal with these people? Don't think people change overnight. See, we have a problem, and I call this instant gratification. It's a problem that's affecting all of us. Instant gratification. We want things done instantly. That's why these days when you go online shopping, you want it to ship the next day. You don't have patience if this is going to ship in 3-4 days. You'll pay for that Prime membership and you're just desperate for it. We want things instantly. That's not how it works. Success comes with patience. Even if someone's ignorant, don't expect them to change overnight. It just doesn't happen that way. So number one, you have to be patient, and between you and God, give that person chances to remove their ignorance or to stop their falsehood. Give many chances until it's proven to you that this person is stubborn and has an agenda. If I know that this person is stubborn, even if 1,000,000 times you show them the truth, they won't accept, and there are people like that, definitely. The Quran talks about such people. If it's proven to you honestly, after having patience, that this person is stubborn, arrogant, and this person has an evil agenda, and he's negatively influencing other people, then yes. At that point, I need to confront this person. But also the confrontation must be an appropriate, effective confrontation. Sometimes you have to be harsh. That does the job. Sometimes you have to find another way, right? So you have to be creative and you have to consult others with experience. How do I deal with this situation here? We've got a problem going on in the community. How do I address it? Sometimes if you become harsh, it could have an adverse effect. It could have the reverse effect. You could actually be giving more support to that false tradition. So you also have to be creative in how you deal with all these things.
Thank you very much. That was a great answer. I think everyone, I hope people actually are listening and taking in this, but judging by the questions, I think people are. One more question we had with regards to taqleed. So switching gears, we're going to talk about taqleed now. We received a few questions about taqleed, and one question we have is, Assalamu alaikum, I am an akhbari. The Quran says that these students will follow their scholars into hellfire. I'm assuming she is referencing the verse where it says the Jews and Christians followed their scholars, and that they changed their religion, something along those lines. I'm assuming she's referencing that verse. And then she says, that makes me afraid of following a marja, but studying myself. What makes me be so sure who to follow and who is trustworthy?
Alaykum assalam, sister. Here's how I would respond to your question. Number one, I would not dehumanize you like some people do. You have a very valid concern, and that's okay. You can label yourself as an akhbari. I don't have problems with labels as long as we are trying to sincerely follow the Ahlul Bayt properly. Having said that, you make a very valid point. The Quran condemns taqleed. Yes, I'm saying this openly. The Quran condemns taqleed. In fact, this was the problem of the pagans in Mecca. When the Prophet told them, come, this is the clear truth, this is the clear path, what did they say? Inna wajadna alayhi aba'ana. We're just following, doing taqleed, emulating our parents. Our parents did it this way, we'll do it their way. Our parents worshipped idols, and so will we. The Quran condemns that. Same with the Christians and the Jews. The Quran criticizes them for blindly following their corrupt scholars. And we also have in our hadith from the Ahlul Bayt, a fierce critique of what is called taqleed at that time. But my dear brothers and sisters, what is taqleed? The word taqleed in Arabic basically means to follow or emulate someone. right? It comes from the word qilada, which means necklace. And basically you put the necklace around the neck of that person. Basically you're saying, I put my religion around your neck. I'm following you. That's kind of the overall meaning. We have types of taqleed. The type of taqleed that the Quran is condemning and some hadiths are condemning is blind following. When the Prophet would talk to those pagans and he tells them, why do you worship the idols? Give me an answer. Sorry, I don't have an answer. My dad did it this way. See, that is what the Quran condemns. But if you have ilm, if you have knowledge, that's not called negative taqleed. Today, if you go to the pharmacy and you seek a medication for an infection, and somebody tells you, why are you taking this medicine? Are you an expert? Are you a doctor? Do you have knowledge? Well, no, I'm not a doctor. So why are you taking this medication for infection? You say, I went to a doctor and the doctor gave me this prescription. Are you to be blamed? Is this wrong taqleed? Absolutely not. You are following that doctor. You are. Because you don't know how the whole system of medicine works. But you are referring to a qualified doctor. That's not taqleed that Quran or the irrational people condemn. Taqleed is when the taqleed that the Quran condemns is the one that you do without having knowledge, without being able to justify it. This is wrong. Now, the taqleed that we talk about today, doing taqleed of scholars, is not that taqleed that the Quran condemns. When we follow scholars, as I said in the lecture part, we are following the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. I'm not following the opinion of this scholar. I don't care about his opinion. He can keep his opinion to himself. Yeah, I respect him as a scholar, but his opinion, his religious opinion is not binding on me. I follow his expertise. He spent decades in the seminary researching the hadiths of Ahlul Bayt, how the legal system works, and he's telling me to the best of knowledge, this is what the Imam wants from you. So as long as the scholar is qualified, I need to know that the scholar is qualified. I either look at his publications, his students, or experts. I can ask 10, 20 experts. Is this marja really qualified in the seminary? Does he know the fiqh of an Imam al-Sadiq or no? If the indications are yes, he is qualified, okay. I have one more thing to verify. Is he pious? Is he someone who's pious or someone who runs after dunya? Or someone who wants money, fame, and political power? That's all he cares about. You have to do some research. If many experts tell you no, this marja is known to be pious. He restrains himself. He always tries to, avoid anything that's haram, anything that's questionable. He's known throughout his life to be a pious person. He does not live a sinful life. Does it mean he's infallible? No. Sometimes we expect our scholars to be infallible. No one other than the infallibles is infallible. A scholar can make a mistake. In one very beautiful hadith, Al-Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam was talking about a qualified scholar. The Imam gives us a beautiful standard. He was asked, can we follow a scholar who makes mistakes? Basically, the Imam said a scholar is one who gets it right more than he gets it wrong. Meaning, he may make a mistake here and there, but generally speaking, he's on the right path and he understands the system, of Islam properly. He may make a mistake, but the mistakes are few. That's basically what the Imam says. So scholars are not expected to be infallible, my dear brothers and sisters. But we have to make sure that they are pious. They have that self-restraint. They fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're really trying to serve the path of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them. Now, one last thing that I will say to the person who forwarded this question. You say that I'm an akhbari, I'm not sure if I should follow a marja. Maybe the Quran condemns me. Again, what do you mean when you say you're an akhbari? How do you reach religious rulings? The first of the month, right? We don't know. Dhul Hijjah, is it going to start today or tomorrow? What do you do? Traveling, qasr, tamam, halal and haram, istihala, gelatin, all these different rulings, right? What do? If you tell me, yes, Sayyid, I'm an expert, I go and I read 16,000 hadiths in the book of Kafi, and I read the book of Shaykh al-Tusi and Shaykh al-Saduq and all these books of hadith, okay, I respect you. If you're really qualified, you have that much knowledge, you can analyze all these hadiths and then come up with your own religious ruling for yourself, that's okay. I respect that. But if I'm not at that level, I have no choice but to refer to an expert. My dear brothers and sisters, those who say we're akhbaris, it's impossible for them to negate taqleed. Because at the end of the day, they also do taqleed. Yes, they may do taqleed of past scholars. Once I was in a dialogue with a brother who, was spearheading an akhbari group. In the end, I told him, what do you do with these two hadiths, these hadiths? He told me, yes, Sahb al-Wasa'il al-Hurr al-Amili, he resolves it this way. He reconciles it this way. He does it this way. I told him, Habibi, okay, so you're doing taqleed of him. You're following a scholar who lived centuries ago. Fine, no problem. Don't say there is no taqleed, because right now what you just did is you followed his methodology in dealing with hadiths. At the end of the day, you have to follow an expert, because we were not alive to see the imams and to know exactly what they said. We need scholars who did that research for us. Now, yeah, we can disagree on who is the most qualified. Fine, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not going to dehumanize you for that. You want to follow this scholar, you want to follow a scholar who lived 500 years ago, that's okay. That's not going to make you a bad person or a Shia with lesser faith. That's okay. We can have these minor differences. But my final statement here is that it's impossible to practice your faith without taqleed. Yes, today taqleed, I admit, has become more institutionalized than it was in the past. The marji'iyah system, the representative system, the wakil system, the way khums is collected, I do recognize it wasn't always done this way. But this doesn't negate the reality that I need to follow a qualified scholar. I need to follow a qualified scholar. If I believe that X Ayatollah is the most knowledgeable in the book of prayer and wudu, I follow him. If you believe between you and Allah, based on your research, that another scholar is more knowledgeable in medical fields and business law, follow that scholar. Who told you you cannot follow two scholars? If you believe that one of them is more knowledgeable in another field, that's fine. That's okay. But in the end, we cannot negate the spirit of taqleed. At the end, I need to follow experts if I'm not an expert.
Thank you for that. And you talking about taqleed reminded me of these two lectures that are translated into English, and I think they're really good for people who sort of doubt the abilities of the marja. So these are two lectures from Sistani which have been translated into English, and they discuss something very subtle, which is the evolution of terminology. So how one word changes meaning from one time to another. And you mentioned that with taqleed.
Absolutely. Right? Initially, the word taqleed had a negative connotation, but over time, it acquired a different meaning.
Mm-hmm. And so these two lectures both touch on this. One of them discusses the word haram, and the other one discusses the word qiyas, and how these two words changed in meaning, and how something as simple as just these two words can be very easily lost for someone who's going in without a methodology and just jumping straight into the hadith without any...
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll post this in announcements, and if anyone is interested, they can take a look at it. And Jawad, you said you wanted to continue on with the questions? Okay, I guess not. Hold on. Hello?
Is it working?
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a question from my friend. He asked, Assalamu alaikum, what should you do to attain happiness and satisfaction if you suffer from a disability such as ADHD, which affects the level of dopamine in your brain? Such a disability can often mean that it takes more than usual to feel satisfied and happy.
I would say, number one, you have to go to a good therapist. And it's okay to go to a therapist, someone who has good reviews. You need to seek therapy. We cannot just disregard therapy. Islam, it commands us to seek the cure from doctors, from experts. So number one, seek proper therapy. Number two, the spiritual acts that we have are really, really helpful in making us happy. Because when you feel that Allah is with you, the Ahlul Bayt is with you, when you get up in the middle of the night, you pour your heart out to Allah, you speak to Allah, you feel much better. Number three, stay awake at the time of Fajr, between Fajr and sunrise. Go outside if the weather is okay. Take a deep, breath of air and take a walk, and a beautiful nature walk. It's been proven that, walking or being active at Fajr time after Salat al-Subuh, the morning prayer, it's really effective in making you happy. Number three, Islam recommends certain foods that make you happy. Honey, for instance, is a food that makes you happy. Grapes, eating grapes is something that's good for your heart and also something that makes you happy. So I would implement, that as well, and have a diet system that makes me happy.
We have one question from someone who says they're from Indonesia. They don't get very much access to scholars, so they're really looking for guidance here. This is a bit of an issue. So, do you mind if, in case like the question is a little too complicated, you might want to go ahead and talk to this person in private? But I can read out the question anonymously here. It says, Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid. This isn't really much of a question. I just wanted to speak about something that happened to me and a potential spouse. So about a month ago, I proposed to someone, and her father didn't even want to talk to me or my parents, and he immediately denied my proposal. Afterwards, I learned that the sister I was proposed to was forced to marry someone else, and at first she tried to resist. Some of her friends even went as far as to ask another scholar to help sort out the problem. Unfortunately, because she was too emotionally drained and afraid, she refused their help and gave up and agreed to the marriage anyways. I was surprised because her father was supposed to be an alim, and they live in Qom, and the other scholar whom her friends tried to get to meet her father was also shocked that this was happening in a place like Qom. As a convert, I'm deeply disappointed and pained by these events, and I wanted to say this so that maybe Sayyid can in the future try to address these issues more and that we can prevent and minimalize them.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Thank you for the question. What you mentioned is very disturbing. It should not happen according to Islamic law. A girl cannot be forced into a marriage. The Prophet and the Imams rejected that. Unfortunately, there are people, even though they may have studied in Qom or they may be scholars, they're influenced by culture. And many times people do not differentiate between culture and religion, unfortunately. And we impose our culture on the religion. So what you saw happening there was not something religious, it was something cultural. And it should not happen. Inshallah, I will take your suggestion into consideration, and we'll try to address this in some of our programs and lectures in the future. But this should not happen. It's completely unacceptable, unfortunately. My dear brothers and sisters, I do have to go, so I would like to thank the organizers of this event for a wonderful opportunity. I would like to thank all those who tuned in and all those who asked questions. Please forgive me if I did not have the chance to answer your question. Inshallah, maybe we can talk to the organizers and see if we can address your questions, inshallah, if there's a way to address them in the future. So I would like to thank all of you. I'm currently visiting the city of Qom, and I will pray for you tonight, inshallah, at the shrine of Lady Ma'suma alayhi salam. Inshallah, you all stay safe. You'll all be well. And in a few days, we will be having Eid al-Adha. So I congratulate you on the day of Eid as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. We all benefited so much from this.
Thank you, my dear brothers and sisters. May Allah bless you. Keep us in your du'as and you're in my du'as.
Likewise. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.